Accenture Vaahini Equality Champion of the Year honors and celebrates a leader who has made significant contributions to enhance the practices of equality and diversity in the community. I'm thrilled to have with me this year's recipient, Suman Gopalan, Chief Human Resources Officer at Freshworks, which creates cloud-based software solutions for businesses. Previously, Suman has led the global and regional HR teams for the Nielsen Company, Dell Technologies, and Whirlpool. She has a postgraduate diploma in Human Resources Management from XLRI Jamshedpur. Many, many congratulations to you, Suman.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor. I'm really grateful to Economic Times and Accenture for this recognition. Thank you.
Suman, at Freshworks, your goal is to have an equal number of men and women in the workforce. In 2020, a third of your workforce was women. Now, how tough or easy was it for you to set the wheels for equality in motion? And what were your broad learnings from it?
Sure. So in 2019, when we were talking about, the culture of the company, what we wanted to be and all of that, the conversation veered around diversity and specifically around gender diversity. And we kind of made a comment saying, why do we accept that 20% is okay or 25% is okay, right? The world is equal. Our country is equal. So why shouldn't we be equal at Freshworks? Literally, that's how the conversation started. And I must say it was our CEO who then said, okay, so what is our path to equality? And he said in the next 1 year, why don't we aim for at least a third of our workforce globally being women? And not just that, he went out and we made a public pledge so that we can hold ourselves accountable to it. And that's what we said, that in a year's time, we will move towards a third. And since then, we've made great strides. So I think that was the starting point for us, where we had commitment right from the top that this was critical for us as a company and that we would make it a priority. And I must say, after that, our entire leadership team kind of corralled around that, whether it was in engineering or product or finance. Across, all leaders were extremely not just conscious, but focused on how they can bring in greater diversity in their teams. And honestly, that's what moved the needle for us. Now, what made it difficult? What was the learnings? Right around that time was when we had COVID hit us. Mm-hmm. And so, it made it really difficult for us, to do a bunch of stuff. On one hand, it did help in that we had so many more women that we could hire because the boundaries around workplace were dissolving. And so we had access to a lot more talent. So that, I think, really helped. But on the other hand, what didn't help is, COVID was really brutal for a lot of women who were trying to balance, the workload at home, at work, and, the constant being online. It was leading to a lot of burnout. But what it did tell us is if we truly want to be diverse, then our approach to work and our policies also need to accommodate for that. And those were some of the initial learnings we had. And today we are, really moving towards that equality. We're closer to about 35% women globally. And our commitment is to get to 40 and then closer to 50.
Right. And it's really commendable that you've managed to move the needle, as you say, during a tough time such as COVID. As an HR person, you attempt to change the culture in the company, bringing in diversity, attempting equality. But do you see self-doubt and, the feeling that I'm a fraud? They are very common among women in the workplace. They will constantly question, do I belong here? Would someone else have been better for this role? So as an HR leader, what do you say to those women?
I think that is very real. Women generally, I do find, tend to be a lot harder on themselves and, have a lot more, I wouldn't call it self-doubt, but, generally tend to question their validity in having the seat at the table. The one thing I would say is the reason you are at that table is because the company, the leaders deem that you're really good, right? None of us get a free pass. And so I would say, recognize that you are there because you are successful, and more often just be kind to yourselves. Celebrate your own success. I think women tend to talk less about their own success and celebrate themselves less. And I think we need to do more of that to, make sure that we are confident talking about our success and owning our success and the work that we do. The second thing that I'd say is, honestly, there aren't that many role models. And so when you are successful, or you are in positions of leadership or any position, you tend to question, am I the right person for it? Because I am the first, or I am one of the few, all of that. And I do think as organizations are becoming a lot more conscious and, bringing in greater diversity, enabling greater diversity, I do think it will become normal for women to find themselves in these positions. And I do think that we would stop questioning ourselves less and less. But we also have to push the needle to make sure that folks who are looking up to us see good role models as well.
You spoke of enabling diversity and inclusion, but there are companies and workplaces, such as yours, which are embracing all of these concepts and putting them to work. But there is a large swath of our country where these are just words. What do you think could help usher in a more equal workplace?
Excuse me. Look, I do think times are changing, right? There is a lot more recognition now than there was 25 years ago. I do think the government has done its part in pushing the envelope a lot. So if you think about it, I want to say about 30 years ago, when they started this whole campaign around the girl child, and education was free for the girl child and all of that. Remember, we've done very, very well as a country in terms of education of girls. Today, a lot more girls are educated than they were, say, 30, 35 years ago. It's very normal. And I'm not just talking about schooling, right? You look at tertiary education, all of that. So often we see newspaper headlines saying, right, 10 standard boards or 12 standard boards, girls do better than boys. So women and girls are much, much more educated today. Access to healthcare, especially, when you go to the interior parts of the country, has improved so much more, right? So women have better access to healthcare, education, all of that. But there are two places where I do think we have to push the needle. And one, I would say, is something we need to do as a country. One, I think we need to do as a community. I do think women tend to participate less in policy making, and that is really critical. If you want to move the needle for women in our country, women need to be there at the table where decisions are getting made, policies are getting made, right? So you look at our participation in government, it is pretty low. Not that we are not pushing the needle, we need to do a lot more on that. And then there is participation in, right? So you look at it, while women are so well educated, women are entering the workforce in the same numbers as men, right? You look at our companies, it's almost 50-50 at the entry level, but then we tend to fall off, right? Women tend to take a break, they never come back. That's what we've got to solve for. Women's participation in the workforce is really, really low. And if we want to move the economy of our country, you cannot have half the population not participate in the economy. So it is a real, not just a social challenge, but an economic challenge that we need to work on as a community, as a government, as a country. But what we can all do, I mean, we can all look at it and say, it's a government issue. But I do think, honestly, we play a huge role in making sure that, one, we are encouraging the girls and the women in our homes and in our community to go out, shine, do well, participate. And we have to make sure that we are changing attitudes towards, how we look at women's roles at home, in the society, all of that. So a lot of it starts with us, but I do think we have to push the envelope as a country as well to make sure that half of our population, which is shying away from participating, whether in decision-making, policy-making, or in organizations, are brought in as well.
What can organizations, companies do to remove these barriers for women to succeed? You said a lot of women are there at the entry level, but then they tend to follow.
Yes, it is a very real problem for us, right? When we are hiring from, say, colleges, India has some of the best statistics. You can argue whether they're great, not great, all of that, but we have one of the best when it comes to women in colleges, tertiary education, all of that. Even when we hire at our engineering and all of the technical roles as well, we have almost 50% men, 50% women. But after that, life happens, variety of reasons, women tend to take a break and never come back. That is a huge loss for us as organizations and as a country as well. So organizations, what can we do? One is, like I said, we have to make it easier for women to stay, right? Or if they choose to take a break, to come back. We make it incredibly hard. And that's part of the reason why women don't come back, right? Because you look at it, there are so many qualified women. I took a break when I had my child. It was a choice. It wasn't that I had to, but I made a choice and I took a break. But when you want to come back after a break, you just have to answer to so many people on why did you take a break? Does that mean you're less qualified than before? Does that mean that you've lost the edge? Does that mean that you're not as ambitious as before? I think we should stop all of that and take it that it is normal that sometimes women will make the choice, whether it is for family reasons or whatever reasons, but they're still as qualified, right? They still retain their knowledge, their edge, all of that. Hugely untapped workforce that organizations need to tap into. But like I said, we also need to make sure that we are preparing them for the fact that there will be multiple stages they go through, and it's okay. And that as organizations, we are supportive of that. I'll tell you, prior to the pandemic, it was unheard of in so many organizations to allow for remote working. And think about it, when you're the primary caregiver, which in many cases is the woman, it's so hard. You have to, have your child be at home. You can't leave him or her alone, or you have an aging parent at home. You can't leave them at home, but you can be just as successful working from home. And I think that's what the pandemic has taught us. And I hope we will continue to build on that and make sure that we make our workplace equal for men and women. Here's the thing I say, right? When we build process and policies on how work happens, oftentimes it's built on how work happens as a majority. And look around you, it is built for men who are majority in the workforce today. And so when you're thinking of bringing in women into the workforce, you have to look hard and say, what are the kind of process, policy, work environment that you need to bring in that is supportive of both? And I think that's the thing organizations can do to make sure that it's level playing for both. Second, I do think the biggest thing organizations can do to encourage more women to participate and be there in the workforce is make sure that you're removing barriers to success and being consciously inclusive. Because many times we have artificial definitions of success, and it's role modeled on, the previous incumbent, which most certainly or most likely male, right? And so you have to be consciously inclusive in making sure that you are setting up ways for women to be successful in your organization as well, right? And of course, make sure that you are taking a hard look at how you're promoting, who you're promoting, how you're measuring success, what you're calling success, and it's a level playing field for everybody.
That was very, very insightful. Thank you very much for your thoughts today. And congratulations once again. We wish you continued success.
Thank you so much. It is my pleasure to be here and an honor to receive this. Thank you.